Raymond is a small mountain community nestled in the lower foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains at an elevation of approximately 940 feet. Once a bustling town in the late 1800s and early 1900s, Raymond was the final stop of the Southern Pacific Railroad, which made it a major gateway to Yosemite National Park and was a major commerce center for the San Joaquin Valley and surrounding foothills. Not quite the town it once was when the railroads passed through, Raymond is now home to under 1,000 residents, and the area consists predominantly of small isolated homesteads and cattle ranches. However, intriguingly, after I shared my last video on a local forum, I have received a number of first-hand reports from locals who claim the Sasquatch are being spotted in areas in very close proximity to the town of Raymond. And even more interesting, the majority of these reports mention multiple Sasquatch being observed. I have mentioned numerous times on previous videos my belief that the Sasquatch will often move down off the Sierra Nevada mountains and venture into the San Joaquin Valley in central California, one of the largest produce-producing areas in the world, usually in late fall and early winter, presumably in search of food. I have received a number of reports of Sasquatch being spotted in these foothills previously. However, with this influx of new reports coming in, some of which were very recent, I thought it was important for us to investigate this area. I spent the majority of the morning and early afternoon investigating Raymond and the surrounding hills. I spoke with a number of area locals and received first-hand confirmation of eyewitness accounts, and the information I have received from the locals and my reconnaissance of the area has pointed me to an area where I believe we should focus our field investigations: the waterways leading into the area. Hello and welcome to SquatchSpot. I'm Darrin Smith, and I hope that all of you out there are doing okay and that you and your loved ones are well. We are currently out in the field and I am investigating a new area of interest. I've mentioned this numerous times on previous episodes. However, your number one resource when conducting Sasquatch research is going to be the locals that are living in that environment. And if you happen to be investigating an area that has had Sasquatch activity, for sure the locals are going to know about it. And after posting my previous video there on a local forum, I have received numerous reports from eyewitness individuals who have had Sasquatch encounters in this area. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that impression behind me there, but it really looks interesting. And I've kind of been scouring this area, but I haven't found anything clearly defined as this one here. And I think what happened was whatever made this impression came out of this vegetation here and then stepped on this embankment and moved forward up this river. But this impression is really interesting, and we're going to take a closer look at it. So the length is running just about 16 inches. The toe width looks like about 8.5, and the heel looks to be about 5. But you can see here almost what appears to be toe definition here. The impression is quite deep, and it looks fairly fresh. So this is really an interesting impression here. So definitely an interesting impression there, but again, I have scoured the area and I have not found any more impressions that match that particular footprint impression that we were finding there. But you can see the direction that it headed up was along this river and along this rock bed here leading upstream in this gorge here. So that's very intriguing because there are a lot of researchers out there who believe the Sasquatch try to hide their tracks. And so a lot of times they will actually get into the rivers and get into the waterways and follow the waterways up into other areas. So that footprint impression was very intriguing because it was a isolated footprint impression running along the river here and leading upstream along this rock bed here where the river is. So that is interesting because we have received a lot of very credible reports that there has been recent activity in this area, and based on the size description of the Sasquatch that the people were seeing, this footprint impression would be consistent with that size and shape of the Sasquatch that's being identified. Though I continued my investigation of the area a bit longer, I did not find any other footprint impressions in the area that could help corroborate what had left the interesting footprint impression we discovered near the river. And unfortunately, pressed for time, I eventually had to abandon my investigation of the area and begin the long trek back to my vehicle. Later that evening, I shared my findings with my SquatchSpot Facebook group and my YouTube channel community, and I received a mix of opinion regarding the interesting footprint impression we discovered, and I want to send out a heartfelt thank you to all of you who contacted me with your opinions. Together, we do have a much better chance of solving this mystery, and the input from all of you was much appreciated. And I would also like to send out a thank you to Mike R. and his stepfather, whose input added support to a working theory. I have shared this before on previous videos, however I will do a brief recap here. As a bear moves through an environment, its trackway can be very erratic, and on occasion, with their track impressions, it could happen that its rear paw will land on top of the impression of its front paw, which creates the appearance of an elongated footprint impression. And if we compare this diagram with the footprint impression we discovered, it's a very close match, especially when noting the tapering of the heel area and the visible claw marks. However, when you're out in the field conducting research, it's not always easy to make an accurate identification of the various environmental anomalies you experienced. Oftentimes, researchers are pressed for time, are faced with various lighting conditions and environmental distractions, and it could be that they have not experienced the anomaly before, or were unfamiliar with the environmental nuances. This is why I feel it is really important for researchers to share their findings with a collective of others engaged on topic, and I think it is yet another example of the pivotal role all of you have in this investigation. There are no experts in the field of Sasquatch. If there were, the mystery would be solved. And as individuals, we have strengths and areas of focus. However, when working constructively as a team, we become a formidable powerhouse of potential, and it's that potential that is going to solve this mystery. Though confident the impression we discovered by the river was indeed a bear track, It bothered me I did not find any other footprint impressions in the area to confirm this, and as I was pressed for time while investigating that area, I wanted to head back into that location to continue our investigation. Returning to the impression we discovered near the river, I decided I wanted to make a casting of it. Okay, I'm going to give that plenty of time to dry, and I poured the mix. As you saw me pouring it, I was going rather thick on the pour because there was some water in the impression, and I wanted to go thick also because it was kind of at an angle, and I didn't want for it to pour over. So I was pouring the mix rather thick on that one, and I do wish I had brought another casting kit with me because I would have liked to have gone all the way up to the top of that impression there. But hopefully it's going to be all right, and we'll give it plenty of time to dry. And I don't know if you paid attention as I was creating the mix, what I'm using here. This one here, the mixing bowl and the spatula, I picked up at the dollar store. It's $1 for the bowl and $1 for the spatula, so that's inexpensive. And I use I recycle the Folgers plastic containers. I'll fill these up with casting mix, and then I usually bring an extra one just so I can grab water somewhere if I'm not packing in water. And what's nice about this size is it fits into my backpack, and also this is usually pretty good size for a couple of footprint impressions, like a reasonable size footprint impression. But today, because this one is so deep, I really could have used some more casting mix to kind of fill in that top layer there, but hopefully the impression is going to come out nice. While waiting for our cast to dry, I continued our investigation of the area, and while doing so, I discovered another impression along the river that caught my attention. The impression is approximately 10 inches long, and what impressed me about it was the general shape of the impression, what appears to be toe definition, and this very unusual protrusion that is coming off at this very curious angle. So this is really intriguing. I don't know if I have enough time to get out and get back to the vehicle and get some more cast mix for this. But this is really interesting because of the unusual toe configuration here. It looks like there could even be deformities, and we do know that there are a lot of deformities being noted on Sasquatch prints, and it's because we believe there's a lot of genetic inbreeding going on. So the gene pool is really not diverse enough, and so they are discovering a lot of anomalies on the footprints. But this is important. This is important, and I'd really like to get out of here, get to my vehicle, and get some more cast mix to make a casting of this, because it does look like we're going to get some weather in the forecast. But this is important, and I think I really need to find a way to create a cast of this. So I am going to shut off the camera here, and I'm going to get busy with this. I raced back to my vehicle to retrieve more casting mix and got busy casting the new impression we discovered. As I returned to the area, I heard some very curious wood knocking coming from the steep forest embankment on the opposite side of the river. However, I did not see anything to explain the source. Though once again pressed for time, I gave the cast plenty of time to set, during which I continued our investigation of this area. However, I did not find anything further that was noteworthy. Though confident the first impression we discovered is a double bear print impression, I am at a loss on the second impression we discovered, and I am very interested in what you guys think. Please leave a comment below or reach out to me on my SquatchSpot Facebook group, which I'll add a link to in the description below. Already, I would like to thank those who have reached out, and I would like to add I have made a few phone calls, and it is on good authority. It is not likely there are beaver in this waterway or at these lower elevations, and I did not see any evidence of them in the area. Taking care not to damage the casts, I packed my camera gear and hand carried the casts. I did not hear any more wood knocks while in the area, and my hike out was uneventful. However, I am very intrigued by the eyewitness reports we are getting from this area. They match up nicely with the other reports we have gotten from the river drainages along the Chowchilla mountain range, and the timing of these reports are consistent with the migratory movement patterns we have established for these creatures. I am a firm believer that Sasquatch do move down to these lower elevations during this time of year as they search for readily available food and resources, and I strongly believe they are moving through these areas along the waterways, and I will definitely be spending more time monitoring these areas. And until next time, I'm Darrin Smith, and I'll see you here at SquatchSpot.